intelligence sharing between America and our traditional allies is likely going to end. The whole Five Eyes thing is likely going to end.
Candace Owens is one of the many people online demanding that Alex Jones be given his proper position as the replacement for Karine Jean-Pierre as press secretary.
I want to be very clear about Alex Jones. I will crawl over broken glass and give him everything I earn. If all he needs is someone to pay the salary, leave it to me. Leave it to me. I'll get a second job to pay whatever salary he wants to be the press secretary. If he's like, I'm gonna need $500,000 a year, leave it to me. Like I said, I will pick up a job. I will raise the money. It'll be totally fine. If we get Alex Jones, we are not worthy. We are not worthy. But Trump, please, it would be the greatest troll. And by the way, he is more than equipped for it. He has run a show for decades. All he does is talk and answer and respond to questions. He is totally equipped for it, and they hate him. The deep state hates Alex Jones with a vengeance. X Smokes writes, Candace, you should be Trump's press secretary. Look, I would be very good at that job, but come on, Alex Jones, like there could be no one better suited for that job that would make us happier. We would be watching press briefings every single day like it was Game of Thrones. Like we'd just be in seasons of Game of Thrones watching Alex Jones respond to the press. So that is my vote.
She would do a good job, but Alex Jones, that's who you want in the role. It's Alex Jones you want in that position. Let's have a look at J.D. Vance. Talking about America's new foreign policy, and I suppose, again, because we've been in a period of hysteria, we can now look at people that are about to form government for at least the next 4 years, talking about what they plan to do. Let's see J.D. Vance talking about America's foreign policy going forward. And of course, the possibility for deception and lying still exists, but let's just actually look at what he's saying, and then we can use this, we can archive this, we can see if this is what actually happens.
We have built a foreign policy of hectoring and moralizing and lecturing countries that don't want anything to do with it. The Chinese have a foreign policy of building roads and bridges and feeding poor people. And I think that we should pursue a foreign policy, a diplomacy of respect, and a foreign policy that is not rooted in moralizing. It's rooted in the national interest of this country. Because Ambassador Sullivan is at the lead of moralizing instead of pursuing America's national interest, I object.
I reckon some people will go through that and try and find euphemism in it. Do you try to think like the people that would condemn J.D. Vance there? The only thing I can reach for is this. Countries are a vast enterprise, the state in itself an incredible endeavour, a deep and vast and terrifying behemoth. Perhaps it doesn't matter what personnel you put within these institutions unless there are significant changes, but they will always tend towards totalitarianism. They will always tend towards elitism. So it's a very general and vague critique about sort of big government, really, and not reflecting our historic tendency to want to live tribally in groups that are of a manageable size. And I recognise this isn't something you can really build policy around. I'm not super naive, but you know, the way we now know that if you eat too much sugar and fat, it will mess you up because you're not evolved to access lots of sugar and fat. Perhaps there's something to be said when it comes to organising community. Perhaps we can handle this only at a certain scale. And perhaps technology could be used not to centralise, but to decentralise. That you could use the technology we have now to create Airbnb and Uber and create incredible opportunities for centralisation and then bespoke service. That's what both of those things do. Is that a fair assessment? To create localised government, which is dreary and managerial and does come down to when's the garbage going to get collected and how are we going to ensure fairness and logistics and operations and stuff that I frankly don't even like thinking about. That's the only kind of critique I would offer against bloody any government. But when you watch J.D. Vance and think about how he was sort of portrayed as an incredible, desperate weirdo, and then hear him say, really, I think we should stop moralising and focus on America. That doesn't seem like a ridiculous thing to say. What I would say is when you see Rachel Maddow, who did offer a moral position throughout this election and previous elections, and indeed it's the role of the anchor on MSNBC, or not the anchor, I suppose the pundit on MSNBC, to offer up moral positions. She has a surprising perspective when it comes to the dissolution of the Five Eyes. Those of you who don't know what the Five Eyes is, the Five Eyes is a set of Anglophonic countries, Britain, Canada, New Zealand, America, Australia, that share intelligence with one another on domestic populations to get round laws that prevent governments spying on their own populations. One of the things that Edward Snowden revealed and why he's still in exile in Russia. In fact, God, here would be some interesting canary in the cage moments for the new Trump administration. Imagine a proper pardon for Julian Assange. Thank the Lord he's free now. Imagine a pardon for Edward Snowden. Then you would recognize, wow, hold on, things are actually different here. But what we can point out and observe, and indeed my personal reasons for thinking that America is better off with a MAGA government than a Democratic Party government. One of those reasons is that the Democratic Party have become the representatives of the deep state and global corporatists, and the Five Eyes are not the goodies. No, just because it sounds like Five Guys, which I think is a relatively popular and pretty good burger chain, that don't mean it's something we should aspire to or support. The Five Eyes is one of the pillars of globalist surveillance. It's one of the ways in which you and I are spied on. You know what data scraping is? Everything on your phone, all of your texts, all of your information is being stored for a later date in case one day in the future you need to be unpersoned. If you've got nothing to fear, you've got nothing to hide. Yeah, well, you don't know how the world's going to alter. You might have something to fear in the future, and the Five Eyes is one of the means and ways that interlocked global institutions spy on their populations. Australia will give information to America and spy. It's extraordinary, and spy on the American population, and England on New Zealand. This is all stuff that Snowden revealed. So what does Rachel Maddow mean when she laments the loss of the Five Eyes? Same with NATO. All these organizations have been hyped to us as somehow positive, but increasingly we're querying that positivity. And what this election and this result of this election might represent is the end of our acceptance of those endorsements, in the same way that the majority of Americans have rejected the endorsement of massive stars and celebrities. Maybe now these sort of star bureaucracies, NATO, Five Eyes, WHO, WEF, maybe they're going to be rejected. Senolytics are the biggest discovery for promoting healthy aging. The aging process obviously isn't our friend, unless I suppose, there's eternal life. But while we're here, we want to be energetic and productive. That's why I use Qualia Senolytic, with science-backed ingredients that have helped me feel, I would say, 15 years younger in a matter of just months. Everyone accumulates senescent cells, known as zombie cells. These senescent cells are old and worn out and not fulfilling a useful function for our health, but they take up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. Qualia Senolytic removes zombie cells and allow healthy cells to thrive. Resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to QUALIA.com/brand for up to, get this, 50% off, and use the code BRAND at the checkout for an additional 15% off. Try it now. Qualia Senolytic is also available at select GNC locations near you. Take it. Just 2 days a month. There's a link in the description. Who don't want to feel 15 years younger and get rid of them zombie cells? Let's have a look at Rachel Maddow lamenting the loss of the Five Eyes.
If we follow this train of thought, is that intelligence sharing between America and our traditional allies is likely going to end. The whole Five Eyes thing is likely going to end. If you've got America switching sides in the Ukraine-Russia war to instead support Russia, or to become neutral, which would mean in this case to support the aggressor, to support Russia. If you've got ongoing secret communications, even out of government, between the Republican nominee and the person who funded his campaign and led his ground game, right? Both of whom are communicating with the Russian government. You are not going to have American allies who have been relying on us as the pinnacle intelligence agency in the world since World War II. You are not going to have continued sharing of information with a new administration that has an open line with Vladimir Putin. And if we're at that level, if that's the kind of transformation that's happening in terms of America on the world stage, the idea of there being a part of the U.S. government that is still in Democratic Party hands becomes a very interesting thing in terms of the stability of the world, right? Yeah.
What do I think about Edward Snowden and Edward Snowden's sacrifices and revelations and Julian Assange? What do they think? Do you know? On legacy media channels, do they think that Julian Assange was bad? Because remember, at the time, there was a moment, this is how it went with Julian Assange. I can remember it. Do you remember? Oh my God, this guy and WikiLeaks, he's a hero. He's revealing information that exposes corruption, in particular, military malfeasance, the murder of civilians by the American military being directed, of course, by branches of government in Iraq. He's revealed that the Democrat Party emails are full of corrupt communications of the Hillary Clinton campaign, for example. He was lauded, loved by like the Guardian newspaper in my country, by the New York Times in your country, and by all of those sort of premium brands like Der Spiegel, Figaro. Every country's got their legacy media brands that are meant to be synonymous with trust, but are now synonymous with corruption. Then what happened is Julian Assange went too far, and he revealed information that was significantly detrimental to the interests of the powerful. And the legacy media bricked it. He was accused of rape. That's what happened. The rape allegations came out of Sweden, which went away. But by the time those rape allegations had gone away, Julian Assange was like on the run, living in embassies and stuff. Then I think he was in prison in my country, in Belmarsh prison, a maximum security prison, for 5 years without trial. Now he's been released, and he's like, thank God he's been released. But that's what real journalism costs. It means that people will try to destroy you. That's what it means. So what does the endorsement or even the opinion of MSNBC matter anymore? What does the endorsement of the celebrity cast mean anymore? These now imploding constellations of falling brands. What do they mean now? What does it mean now? And what does NATO mean now? What do the Five Eyes mean now? Indeed, this could be significant. And even when you see someone like Candace Owens there talking presumably humorously about Alex Jones being press secretary, I sometimes do think though, like, why not? Why not? You think Jen Psaki wasn't biased? You think Karine Jean-Pierre's not biased? Of course you're biased. You're propagating to the media for the government. So, what? In a way, we've all embedded and consumed and somehow imbibed their damnation of us. Like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I could never run a country. I mean, I don't think anyone should be running whole countries. It's too vast. You need massive subsidiarity. You need to devolve power to the smallest possible units for maximum electoral representation. But I don't think that fundamentally Jen Psaki or Karine Jean-Pierre are qualified for a job that Alex Jones isn't. I recognise he's a more of an eccentric character, but maybe what America wants and the world needs is eccentricity now. Or do you think that Joe Scarborough or Rachel Maddow, who do you trust more? Julian Assange, don't forget Eric, he's not even in this list. Edward Snowden or Alex Jones, or do you trust Rachel Maddow or Karine Jean-Pierre, Jen Psaki? Who is it that gets to decide these brands? I remember, like, we attended the RNC with Rumble, and we said then, like, when you see Hulk Hogan tearing his top off and going, I love my print, it's kind of crazy, particularly if you're sort of familiar with the dynamics of wrestling and the sort of broad commedia dell'arte insanity of that stuff. But I know how that moment would have been read by people within the democratic institutions. And so that's really crass and vulgar and awful, is it? But Beyonce or Megan Thee Stallion or, George Clooney or any one of the stars that endorse Kamala, well, that's credible and that's blue chip. It's only branding, It's only branding. There's not some sort of essential quality to those stars or celebrities. Believe me, I've been in that world. They're not better than you. And obviously you don't need me to tell you that. You know that already, don't you? You know that already. That's what's happening. We've awoken to the fact that we can't trust legacy media, that Hollywood's all right for films. I like, Iron Man and all of that. It's a good film, but you don't, maybe let them sell you coffee, but don't let them sell you governments. That's what I'd say, but that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and the chat.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.